Hi, Nyasha here from Trudie Broekmann's attorneys, and I'm here to talk to you today about racial discrimination in the consumer industry and how consumers can use the Consumer Protection Act to obtain justice. Did you know that the Consumer Protection Act deals with racial discrimination aimed at consumers by suppliers? It is not uncommon to hear of cases where suppliers discriminate against consumers based on their race. Examples of some of these are retailers' discriminatory practices of subjecting black consumers to searches on exit, or when black consumers are denied rental opportunities based solely on their race and not on objective factors such as references and their credit record. Discrimination can have the effect that a consumer is excluded from accessing goods or services due to their race, or has to wait for access to those goods or services because another race has been given priority, or is offered a different quality of goods or services, or charged a different price for the same goods or services. Most consumers, however, don't know about the avenues that are available to them to seek redress for consumer racial discrimination in the Consumer Protection Act. The Consumer Protection Act prohibits any form of unfair discrimination between consumers as enshrined in the Constitution of South Africa. By offering consumers a right to equality and fair treatment in the consumer market, the CPA is a potent weapon for consumers should they be subjected to unfair racial discrimination. But how does this work? 1. The discrimination has to be unfair. By way of example, withholding an apartment from rental by a person merely because of their skin color amounts to unfair racial discrimination and is prohibited. However, should a supplier differentiate their product offering on objective factors, by example, offering separate hair care products based on inherent hair characteristics, that will not amount to unfair racial discrimination. But what is protected? Section 8 of the CPA gives each consumer the right to be treated equally. It prohibits unfair exclusion and direct or indirect differential treatment of consumers in the marketing or supply of the goods or services on the basis of unfair grounds of discrimination, for example, discrimination based on race, language, gender, age, sexual orientation, etc. Who is protected? Any individual who experiences unfair discrimination as a consumer is protected. Also, any juristic person, be it a company, a close corporation, a trust, an association, a partnership, a body corporate, a trade union, etc., is protected if the discrimination is based on characteristics of a human being who is either a member, an associate, an owner, a manager, an employee, a client, or a customer of the juristic consumer. What this means is that should a supplier unfairly discriminate against a consumer on the basis that the consumer's client base is predominantly of a certain race, then the consumer, although a juristic person, can use the tools in the CPA to seek redress. What can you do if you have suffered discrimination? The Consumer Protection Act protects you even if you are under threat of unfair racial discrimination, as well as if you have already suffered actual unfair racial discrimination. Section 4 of the Consumer Protection Act gives you the right to approach the Equality Court or a tribunal to complain about the behavior of the supplier. What you need to demonstrate to the tribunal or the Equality Court is that there was discrimination against you, and there is a presumption of unfairness, so the responsibility is on the supplier to prove that the discrimination was fair. So if the court or the tribunal decide that there was unfair discrimination, they can order that there be payment of goods to you, of damages to you, or a referral of the matter to the South African Human Rights Commission or the National Prosecution Authority for possible institution of criminal proceedings. The CPA therefore provides a steady protection for consumers against discrimination, especially racial discrimination. Suppliers are therefore advised to familiarize themselves with these provisions and train their staff appropriately. Likewise, consumers are also advised to familiarize themselves with these provisions so that they can guard against their rights being infringed in the consumer market. Thank you for listening.